Cat Days by Griffin Rose on AO3. Episode 13, Chapter 2, First Week of School. He had no idea how long it took before a nurse came out to tell him he was stable, and they could go see him if they wanted. Hisashi carried him into the room, and then Izuku squirmed until he could jump out of his arms and onto the bed. Shouta was still sleeping, heavily bandaged to the point where the only skin showing was under his nose. But he was alive. His mother had made it to the hospital alive, too, and then died days later from her injuries. Izuku determined he was not leaving this room until Shouta did. He gently curled up next to him, pressing himself against Shota's side as he could feel his dad breathing. Hisashi took the chair next to the bed. The doctor said he'll be okay. Izuku didn't care about what the doctor said. He wasn't leaving. Hisashi tried when visiting hours were over. Izuku hissed and swiped claws at him, which got him grounded, but the commotion also drew the attention of the night nurse. She either didn't care enough or cared too much, because she said Izuku could stay if he really wanted to. Izuku was still grounded. Izuku was dozing when Shouta woke up, but he was still pressed against his side, so he felt the shift in Shota's breathing. His head shot up, and he let out a soft meow. The room was dark, only a small light near the door, still for the nurses to see by when they did their rounds. Izuku? Shouta slurred, voice muffled through all the bandaging. Izuku meowed again and rubbed his head gently against Shota's side. Shouta inhaled deeply and shifted around the bed, grunting when he met the resistance of all the bandages. Steadying, Izuku gently placed a paw on Shota's arm, encouraging his dad to stay still. What happened? Shouta asked. Kids, K? Izuku let out another meow and moved along the bed until finding the call button. He pressed it with his nose. At the moment, he knew he didn't have the frame of mind to morph, and he didn't particularly want to. Being human would bring all those overwhelming emotions back, and he wasn't ready to deal with that yet. But Dad wouldn't calm him down and sleep again without answers, and someone who spoke with human words needed to give them. A nurse didn't take long to come in, explaining that, as far as she knew, all the students were okay. Shouta and the Hero 13 were the only ones with injuries. Izuku? Shouta asked again. Is that one of the students? The nurse asked. Izuku meowed from the spot on the bed. Oh, this little guy? The nurse said. Apparently he refused to leave your side. He's not bothering anyone, so we let him spend the night. Shouta grunted and turned his face towards Izuku. Izuku took that as permission to curl up on the pillow next to his head. That was how Hisashi found him when he came by later, updating Shouta on more of the specifics of the attack and UA and how everyone was doing. Izuku? Shouta asked again. Hisashi sighed and ran a hand down Izuku's back. He morphed when they took you away in the ambulance. He hasn't morphed back. I'm not sure if it's by choice or not. Shouta grunted. Izuku made himself comfortable again and went back to sleep. Despite his determination to stay until Shouta could leave too, Izuku was not allowed to. Shouta didn't mind him being there while UA was closed, but when it opened again, he made Izuku go home and sleep in his own bed, and he made Izuku promise to morph back on his own. Izuku wouldn't have done it for anyone else, but he did it for his dad. He calmed down considerably since the USJ, so he morphed, and he felt the full force of his emotions again. It wasn't as bad as he'd been expecting. He didn't break down into uncontrollable sobs, though he did spend most of the night squeezing and hugging his pillow. He wanted to morph back into a cat again, but it was better to get it out of his system now, rather than try and deal with it in class. Unless he went to class as an animal, Koda could translate for him, and he's sure he'd figure out how to take notes as a monkey or something. Would the teachers allow that? It probably wasn't his best strategy. He went in early with Hisashi, like always, and went to wait in the classroom. His poor sleep the night before showed in the dark circles under his eyes, but considering the circumstances, he thought it was understandable. At least the exhaustion kept him numb. He put his head down on the desk until Tenya arrived, and then he talked with him about the last few days. Tenya caught up to his mood and did his best to distract Izuku. Though he wasn't effective, and Tokoda, Uraraka, and Ashido arrived. He was subtly distracted until homeroom started, and Shouta limped through the door. Izuku shot out of his seat. His dad wasn't supposed to be out of the hospital yet. "What are you doing here?" Izuku demanded. He rolled the teacher chair out and all but forced his dad into it. "How did you even get here?" "I'm fine. Take your seat," Shouta ordered. "No, I'm getting on Hisashi and Recovery Girl." "Izuku." "Dad." They glared at one another. "This isn't any different than talking to people from a hospital bed." Shouta spoke softly. "I'll go to the infirmary during break." Izuku still wasn't satisfied. "Don't make me give you detention." Reluctantly, Izuku sat down again, but he was perched on the edge of his seat all throughout homeroom, in case anything happened. The most exciting thing after that was the Force Festival announcement, which did nothing for Izuku's nerves. He was on edge the whole day, and no matter how the class tried to distract him, nothing could take his mind off of his dad. He didn't relax until they were all home, Shouta back in bed where he belonged, and Izuku curled up against him. They napped until Hisashi brought them dinner, and then they ate in Shota's room. He and Hisashi took turns holding up the smoothie Hisashi had made for Shouta. It was the easiest thing for Shouta to eat when he had no hands. "All right," Shouta said when they all finished. "Izuku, you know I'm going to be fine, right?" Izuku fiddled with his fingers. "Yeah, that's what everyone keeps saying." "Then you could stop worrying so much." Izuku glared up at him. "You wouldn't stop worrying if it was me." Hisashi smoothed the laugh. "He got you there." Shouta sighed. "Maybe I wouldn't. But you're affecting your health like this. Did you sleep at all last night?" Izuku looked down again and shrugged. "Emotions are more overwhelming as a human." "That's why you morphed?" Hisashi asked gently. Izuku nodded. "I think it was instinct, watching the ambulance. I was just feeling too much, so I morphed into something that wouldn't." "That's not healthy, Izuku," Shouta said. "You can't just morph every time you don't want to face a problem." "I'm not going to get stuck again," Izuku said. "And I don't see the problem morphing into something else until I'm at a point where I can deal with a problem." "It's not about you getting stuck," Shouta said. "I know you trained yourself past that, but I'd rather you didn't morph into animals. We can't understand when you're struggling." "We want to help, Izuku," Hisashi nodded. "But we need you to let us help." Pressure built behind his eyes, and he sniffled. "I was just really scared I was going to lose you. It was going to be like my mom all over again. I can't." "Oh, Izuku," Shouta whispered, struggling to sit up. A proper hug was out of the question, but he let Izuku cling to him and mold his limbs around Izuku as best as he could. The pressure burst, and Izuku sobbed all of his pent-up emotions into his dad's bandages. "It's okay, Izuku. I'm still here," Shouta said. "I'm okay." "Well, okay might be a stretch," Hisashi joked. "But you will be. And Izuku, you've got me and Amuri and Tensei and everyone at UA. Even if something does happen to Shouta, you won't be alone. I promise." Hisashi wrapped the both of them up in a hug from behind Izuku. When Izuku calmed down, he felt like he finally cried the worst of his emotions out. He was left groggy and exhausted, and Shouta and Hisashi encouraged him to bed. He knew they didn't mean right there, but he made himself comfortable next to his dad anyways, and drifted off to Shouta, chuckling, and Hisashi running his fingers through his hair. Shouta could only shake his head at Izuku. If he could, he'd wrapped his son up in a much-needed hug. He'd settled for a one-armed hug for now. Honestly, breaking both arms at the same time was supremely inconvenient. He hadn't gotten hurt on the job in a long time, and usually when he did, it was nothing near this level. Still, he hadn't expected Izuku to react so strongly, even though in hindsight, it hadn't exactly come out of nowhere. The last time Izuku had seen his mother, she'd been badly hurt. Of course, he had some lingering trauma from that, and he'd always clung to Shouta from the very beginning. The outcome was obvious. They'd have to talk about this more, though. Izuku had to know that if something happened to Shouta, Hisashi would take care of him. If not Hisashi, then Amuri, or Tensei, and so on. There was a long list of people who would take him in. They'd said as much tonight, but that wasn't the kind of thing that went away with one conversation. I think this surprised him. Hisashi said, softly, leaning back in the desk chair. It's one thing for you to get a broken rib on patrol. It's another to see you getting beaten up within an inch of your life when you're his teacher. He tried to protect me, Shouta said. I know we've been training him, but he has no real experience, and he still didn't hesitate to pull himself in between me and that thing. Hisashi chuckled. Why does that surprise you? He's always been like that. Remember that quirkless kid, that first year of middle school? Oh, yeah. Shouta remembered. Izuku came back from his first day of middle school with a broken nose, 2 black eyes, bloody knuckles, and a torn uniform because he jumped in to protect a third-year student getting beaten. Shouta had been equal parts proud and terrified. Izuku was nothing but fury, ranting all night about the hell he was going to rain down on the bullies. It was really more Shouta and Hisashi raining hell. They were the ones who called the school with their concerns, throwing around their pro-hero status to get some quick results. Izuku went on to befriend the quirkless kid, getting into more than one fight because of it in that year. So really, Izuku doing the same for Shouta now shouldn't surprise him. He's one hell of a kid, Hisashi said, smiling down at Izuku. And he'll be one hell of a hero. I could do with him not giving me a heart attack before he graduates, Shouta murmurs. You and me both. Hisashi laughed. I'm just glad you're still alive, Sho. Shouta glanced between Hisashi and Izuku. Yeah, me too. He had to see the kind of hero Izuku would be. After all. Let's go. Okay, next chapter is chapter 3, Izuku the Social Butterfly. Izuku had decided to befriend a few classmates, whether they liked it or not. Okay. Oh, the Shinso. I wish it was a Shindeku. This would be a perfect premise for a Shindeku. But it's not a Shindeku premise. It's just found family premise. There's actually like 0 ships in this fic. I'm actually surprised. Normally there's ships, at least like one side pairing. Even if it's not like a main thing, it's like a side pairing. What is going on? That's all I'm gonna say. Yeah, it's a gen fic. It's like a completely gen fic. Like 100% gen fic. 100,000 to 100 to 124,000. Yeah, 124,150 word long gen fic. A fic that's almost 130k is really good. Don't get me wrong, I like long fics. Jesus fucking Christ, what do you mean they... Okay, hold up, I read that wrong. I thought it was 2021, the 7th, so that would be what? That would be July? All the way till the 9th, which would be September. And I'm like, what do you mean you wrote this shit in like 2 months? What? No. But no, it was not that they wrote it in 2 months. It was in 1 whole year. Yeah, I got scared. I got petrified for a second there. I was like, what the fuck do you mean? But I like this so far. I like that Izuku was able to actually coexist with his emotions. I'd like to talk about something that I didn't talk about last time, which is how Izuku deals with his emotions, which is turning into an animal, right? Because animals don't feel as intensely as humans. And yeah, humans can feel emotions very tensely, to the point where we could feel multiple condescending, not condescending, but counterproductive? Like, you could feel angry and happy at the same time. Sad and happy at the same time. Sad and happy at the same time would be considered bittersweet, right? It has now an actual name for it. But we can often feel emotions that contradict, there you go, the main emotion we're feeling, or such jumbled up mess of emotions that it's hard to understand. So yeah, we tend to distract ourselves as a coping mechanism. And it's not necessarily a bad coping mechanism. A distraction is a good coping mechanism in moderation, right? In moderation. Most coping mechanisms are good in moderation. Too much of it and it could become a problem. One of my main biggest coping mechanisms is that distraction. I distract myself. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. For the most part, when I distract myself, it's in the form of watching an anime, reading a fanfic. Why do you think I'm so into fanfictions, right? I'm gonna share something personal here, but for the most part, I have this... So, okay, if I were to explain it, when was the last time you were happy? Like, genuinely happy for a solid day, right? And it wasn't because you were doing something fun. It was just like, you were just content. Not even just happy, just you were content. I don't live in a constant state of content. I live in a constant state of nothingness. If I don't have something constantly making me happy, I sink deeper and deeper into depression. in short words, right? And to a depressive state, right? And it is something I deal with. And a way I cope with that is by, fan fiction, shows, rewatching my favorite shows, listening to my favorite music, talking to people. That one is actually not that much because I don't really like to talk to people that much. Believe it or not, I'm an introvert. I'm not outroverted. Okay. A lot of people, when they're like, oh, you guys are like Hisashi, because... Okay. Me and my partner, we have this on-running bit that our relationship is like Hisashi and Aizawa, right? Hisashi and Shouta. And when people try to guess who is who in the relationship, people say that I'm Hisashi and that my significant other is Shouta. Besties, you got it wrong. Besties, I would rather be in my room reading, watching a show, or doing literally anything else that isn't that, or sleeping. I like sleeping in the middle of the day too, but not at night. I have insomnia, I'm pretty sure. It's not like diagnosed or anything, but I'm sorry. Me not being able to fucking sleep, laying down for 3 hours, I can't fall asleep. I feel literally tired. I want to sleep. I'm tired. Like, my eyes are drooping. And every time I lull myself to sleep, slumber does not take me in her wake. So it's not diagnosed, but the signs are there. Anyways, but people refer to me as Hisashi. I'm sorry, bitches. I am not Hisashi. I am Shouta. No, especially in that relationship. Don't get me wrong. I can have, in the relationship sun and moon. I'm the moon. They're the sun. The moon reflects the light of the sun. Yes, I am energetic. I can rant a lot. Yes, I am, but what you're hearing, what you're seeing, this is me and closed doors, right? In this whole year, the amount of times I've hung out with friends, outings, not just because of school or anything like that. I don't have school, right? But actual outings, right? Anything that isn't mandatory by school, work, whatever it is, right? Is I can count it with one hand. Literally this whole year. One whole year. And I've only gone out with friends 2 times in this year. Yep. 2 motherfucking times. I'm an introvert. I'm an introvert, right? Sunny, on the other hand, literally 2 weeks ago, they said, it was in the double digits, and that was just of the first of that month. Actually, no, I think it was of that week. I'm pretty sure it was of that week. So, keep that in mind. I am a very introverted person. Anyways, moving on. As I was saying, I fall into that type of thing. So I don't really like talking to people that much, believe it or not. Unless it's Sunny or somebody that I'm really close with, right? But either way, as I was saying, right, I would prefer to stick to my own bubble and not go out, right? And that's okay. Some people are like that. And one of my biggest coping mechanisms back in the day, when it used to be really worse, because now it's not as bad, right? But when it used to be really, really bad, that was in school, right? Quite literally, it was to the point, there was points where I felt so numb, I would mentally refer to myself as a literal doll. Either a literal doll or a moldable clay. Or both. A clay doll. That's what I felt like. That was like the best way to describe how I felt like to my day-to-day life. I molded myself when I was with a friend to fit that friend's vibe, and I would mimic shit, and I would feel awful because I don't feel happy. And like the second I feel happy and I'm with them, the second we leave, the second I move myself from that situation, I crumble. And the only times I was happy was while I was watching something and doing all this other stuff. And so I literally jumped into just fandom culture. And don't get me wrong, I love fandom culture. I really do. But it could get consuming, especially when you use it as a coping mechanism and as such. It got to the point where that coping mechanism shifted over to maladaptive daydreaming, where I would daydream and I would make up whole scenarios in my head, which doesn't seem as bad. I mean, it seems daydreaming. It's harmless. How can that turn into a not healthy coping mechanism? I started to lose reality. That's how. But how Izuku's way of, turning into an animal to not deal with his emotions. Yeah, sometimes our brain makes you forget or makes you not touch on it at that moment because you're not ready. And that's okay. But if you create a habit of continuously pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, and here's the important part, not touching it, think of it this way. You're putting a bunch of Mentos into a Coke bottle, and you're closing it. And you're putting Mentos, and you're closing it, and you're putting Mentos, and you're closing it. At one point, that bottle's gonna fucking explode. It would have been better if when the Mento drops in, instead of closing it and preventing it from exploding, letting it explode a little bit. Because now, the bottle's broken. The soda's everywhere, and it's harder to clean and fix than if it was a little spill. You get what I mean? It is fundamentally important to understand bottling up your emotions is not okay. There's a difference between bottling up your emotions and putting it to the side to address when you are mentally capable of addressing. I do that. I put shit to the side for when I'm mentally capable of addressing. I do this for arguments with friends or significant others as well. Hey, we're in a heated moment. Let's address this when we've calmed down. It's not going to pass a week before we address it. Before I address my feelings, right? And if when I go to address it, I realize I need some more time to simmer with this, I'll give my time. But for the most part, I never need more time to simmer with it. Point taken is, what I'm trying to say here is, Izuku's coping mechanism, while not bad in the beginning, can be bad. It could become to the point where he bottles up his emotions and it explodes. And it gets even worse because he's bottling up his emotions and he's not relying on people. That's another thing. When dealing with strong emotions, you have to rely on others sometimes. You cannot fight battles by yourself. There's some things you just can't do yourself. As much as you don't want to admit it to yourself, some things you have to rely on others to be able to do. Right? Think about it. Serious stuff like scooter ankle or scooter ankle thoughts, heavy depression, heavy anxiety, panic attacks, anxiety attacks, because those are two different things. Any emotion of insecurity, EDs, DV, anything like that is really heavy in topic. Yeah, sure, you could get over an ED by yourself. I did it. I'm currently working on that myself as well, right? And yeah, sure, you could get over a scooter ankle thoughts by yourself. And yeah, sure, you could find a way to live and manage with your depression. But you're making it harder than it's supposed to be. You're adding steps. Because it's already hard. It's already hard. The road to recovery is already hard. As I've said before in past videos, healing is not a linear process. Sometimes you take 1 step forward, 3 steps back. Sometimes you take 5 steps back and 3 steps forward. And sometimes you take 6 steps forward, 2 steps back. And sometimes you go sideways. You go left, you go right. Sometimes you go up, sometimes you go down. Healing is not linear, and that's okay. Sometimes you heal from one thing just to find out you have trauma in this other thing and you get set back. Healing is not linear, and that's okay. It's okay to come back. It's okay for all these things, right? It's okay. It's okay. Healing is hard as it is, right? What's not okay is you putting more barriers. Healing is already a long, hard process. Why do you want to make it longer and harder by going through it yourself? Have support system, right? And I don't mean just one person you rely on. That's not fair to you, and that's not fair to that person. It's not fair to that person because you are literally having them carry a huge burden by themselves. How would you feel? And it's not fair to you because if that person so chooses that they no longer want to bear the burden of all your troubles, which they have the right to, they have the right to put that boundary, then you will be left without a support system. And that's not fair to you either. You need a group of support system, right? I have my support system, well, actually. Okay, no, yeah, I do. I had to think about it for a second, but I do. I was like, shit, is it one person again? Fuck, I need to build it again. But no, it consists of 3 people, and it's currently about to be 4. Anyways, moving on. We love a 4, whatever. Your support system is important. You need that to be able to, get through stuff, right? To be able to go through it faster, to go through it easier. You don't have to suffer alone, right? And part of you might think, I could do it by myself. That's not you talking, baby. That's the trauma. That's the trauma. I hate to break it to you, but that's the trauma. You are self-punishing yourself by making yourself heal on your own. If it's not self-punishing, it's simply because you don't trust that somebody can help you and you've been wronged, and therefore you don't trust someone with such a vulnerable part of yourself. Either way, whatever reason you might think of in your head, if you think of it long enough, the root of that is trauma. Unfortunately, trauma is always with us. We can never escape it. And before you think, no, I don't have trauma, trauma could be something as simple as when you were 3 years old, your parents said no to you having chocolate, and now that has formed a little fucking seed in your brain that you really, really hate rejection. Trauma is weird because the brain can view something super traumatic, like having a pew-pew literally on your head, be less traumatic and less imprinting. Not that it's less traumatic, it is very traumatic, but less imprinting in your brain traumatically, in a medical speaking way, a psychological speaking way, like traumatic building where like your brain literally releases the chemicals of the trauma, not of the trauma, but releases the chemicals and makes the pathways that give you those long-lasting effects, right? And sometimes it does for you getting a paper cut when you were fucking 2. The brain is weird, okay? As smart and as brilliant as the mind is, because the brain and the mind is super, that's the same thing. It's super, super cool. Ooh, our neurons, we run electricity through our brain all the time, and it is so strong and it is so overpowered. Our brain can fuel a goddamn NASA computer and more, right? And then sometimes our brain are stupid as fuck and take shortcuts. Our brain is stupid dumb. No, hold up. A stupid smart. Smart stupid? There it is. Smart stupid. That's the one. Oh my god, this is 16 minutes of me ranting. I'm so sorry, guys. Half of this was me ranting about coping mechanisms. The other half was me venting. Okay, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.